Welcome to Beast TV. What was that? You better get a fresh dip and buckle up. Welcome to Beast TV podcast number 88. And we are not live, are we, Larry?
We are not. Not right now, because I'm in Texas.
Yeah, we're both out of town. And so, but hopefully we will be in chat and that we will both have reception. But we just appreciate everybody that comes into our chat room and that has subscribed and leaves comments. And so it just wouldn't seem right if we didn't have some type of podcast. And we all have our favorite Bigfoot stories. And we've got so many on here. I mean, you can just really click on any of our podcasts and our guests that we have on. They've just all been exceptional.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And so we just thought that we would pull out a few clips of some of our favorite encounter stories and let them play for y'all tonight, and y'all can watch them while y'all licking that salt lamp.
Oh, man. As long as they ain't wearing thongs while they're licking it.
We're going to have a salt licker on here on this second video clip, Larry. So That'll be good.
Yeah.
And he's one of my favorite storytellers. He really is.
He's a good one. He's detailed. He remembers the chronological order of everything that happened. That's what that police training does. When you got to go to court, you got to remember all that stuff. Bam, bam.
But this first one, after Lori told it to us that night, Larry and I both, we really don't want to hear nobody's encounter stories before the show. And it's funny when we go to do an audio video check or we're talking with the guest before, they'll go off into the story a lot of times and we'll stop them because we want to hear it, for that first time on the air. Yeah. And it's just so much better. And I like being able to ask questions off of impulse and instead of, pondering on what they said. And so it's just I guess the way me and Larry click, in that we like to hear these stories live. But this encounter story really stood out to me. And it's from Lori Corson, of what happened to her. And she was by herself, except that she had her dog with her. And Larry, you can attest to this. The ladies that we have been out with, to me, I would just about rather be out with females because it kind of seems like they might attract them for some reason.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a single lady that I've seen get skittish out in the woods. They seem to be braver than men for the most part.
It does seem that way for sure.
And so to hear Lori tell this story and just imagining her where she backed her truck down in this remote area that she couldn't even get out of unless it was daylight to be able to see it. And so that she wouldn't get off the trail, she basically had to bushwhack a little trail to get her truck off in there. But she has had activity there before and has had activity there afterwards. So we're going to go ahead and play this encounter that Lori Corson had.
I tell you what, I had an encounter not that long ago, and it was probably the most, I mean, you know, aside from the very first time, you know how thrilling that is, once you decide that you really did see what you saw. But the last time was up in Oklahoma. We have 10.5 acres, and I went up there to do some camping. The previous time I had been there with my husband, and a bear had come into the camp and was just a few yards away. So this time I went back. I shined a flashlight in his face and it scared him away. It was a young bear. So not so young. A mommy was around, so I didn't have to deal with her. But, you know, young enough that a flashlight in the face was enough to scare him away. But so this time I didn't feel so safe in my tent cot that I normally use, which is, you know, just barely bigger than I am, but very comfortable. It's not that safe when you're in bear country, I guess. So I decided I brought a bigger tent, which I never actually put together at this spot because the ground was so rocky. My tent cot, you're up off the ground. So anyway, I decided to just sleep in the back of my truck, in the bed of the truck, look up at the stars, you know, and on a Monday night, nothing happened. I was listening and, you know, just mulling and kind of meditating, and nothing happened. But on Tuesday night, I was laying in the back of the truck again with my dog, and I was hearing some things further off. It sounded like maybe a large animal, but it wasn't close enough for me to really, you know, think it was anything. But I just got this feeling inside of me rather suddenly that I need to maybe get inside the truck, or at least put my little dog in the truck. I have a Doberman Pinscher that goes out with me many times. I know that Bigfoot does not like dogs. And, you know, that's my friend. So in order to keep her safe, I thought maybe I'll put her in the cab. And then I thought, well, I didn't want to be all by myself in the back of the truck, because if you're laying down, you can't see around you. You have to be sitting up, and then they can, you know, they won't come as close because they can see you. So I got in the truck with my dog. We're in the cab. A little while later, I hear things going on in the campsite. I don't take much with me. I got my gearbox. I set it on a table. I put wind chimes on my gearbox and different, you know, bells here and there. And I can hear things when they get jacked with, because, you know, I hear ding-a-ling-a-ling. I know something's out there. And I started hearing these sounds. And all of a sudden, well, I had realized suddenly that I had not remembered my batteries in my recorder, which I am eternally angry with myself about. But I'm listening to these sounds, and all of a sudden my truck starts to shake. It shook and it shook like I'm doing this. It was shaking very hard. It stopped. It shook 3 times, very hard shakes. My dog is petrified. Bigfoot is the only thing she's ever been afraid of that I've seen. She's a little gun shy, but as far as animals go, she's terrified of Sasquatch. And she was trying to get in the floorboard where an 80-pound dog does not fit. And but I could hear them out there. There were 2. There was a shadows, perhaps 7.5 and 6.5 feet. They weren't very well backlit. It was very dark, but I saw the very distinct shadows. And this went on for off and on probably half of the night. And I got on my camera, which takes video, and I'm whispering, they're out there right now. This is so exciting, and I could hear them talking. Now, I've heard recordings of people, of Bigfoot rather, talking to each other, and the garble, the Navajo. To me, it sounds like a mixture of Navajo and Asian speech. But this is not what I heard. I heard more like Charlie Brown's teacher. They were saying, walk, 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 walk. Like if you're old enough to remember Charlie Brown's teacher, that is what they sound like. And these sounded like, and they had two very distinct voices. One was higher pitched than the other one. And anyway, they left. I tried to open my rear window so that I could lay my seat back and get a picture or something out of my back window. It was so dark. And every time the window made that very soft slide sound, they left. And they came, one or both of them returned 2 other times. So 3 times I had a visit in my campsite that night. And then the one time I wasn't sure if the second one was there but the one was talking. So I thought, well, he's probably talking to somebody, unless it's more like me and talk to yourself sometimes. I don't know. But that was very exciting. I had to build a road to get down into this spot. It's a very bad road getting to the area where I was. And it was tricky getting my truck backed into there. There's no place to turn around. So I backed in after I cleared the way. And I have to be honest, because of the way they were shaking my truck, it was a little freaky. And it did cross my mind, maybe I should, get out of here. But what made my decision to stay mostly was because, they already know I'm here. And I would much rather them just think I'm bold than see me try to drive out and not be able to make it up that hill and out that little wee way that I made to get in with. If I got stuck trying to get out, now they know I can't get out. And I thought that would be worse than just sitting there and let's see what they do next, But anyway, that was my Oklahoma encounter from September of last year. So about 6 months ago. I can't wait to get back up there. I've been up there again since then, but I got rained out. So I camped over at the Robbers Cave State Park that time. And it rained on me all night, the second night. And then it was very cold the next morning. But during the night, I did have my recorder going. And this is about 3 weeks after the other, 3 months after the other time. And I heard tap, 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 tap on my tent cot. But because it was raining, I had the rain fly on. And it was a little like being inside a coffin when there might be a monster outside. I wasn't digging that at all. So, but it was another exciting night. Yeah, my truck has to be the best ever. I mean, there were handprints on my truck the next morning. There were only some partial prints that I found on the ground. It's just very rocky and there wasn't any. I couldn't find any decent tracks. There is a cliff that I believe they go down and come up. There's partial prints over there too, and it's just difficult to try to follow where they went or find where they came from. But the handprints on the top of the bed of my truck on the passenger side, there was part of a palm and part of the fingers. And then on the other one was just fingers across the top. And they were oily enough that my truck wasn't filthy and their hands weren't filthy and my truck wasn't. Anyway, the prints were there. I took pictures, but they didn't, you have to be told their handprints or maybe you won't know their hand. You know what I mean? So, but about 3 weeks later was Woodstock, Footstock. And I met a guy at Footstock that is a tracker. Some of y'all have met him, J.C. Williams. I was telling him the story and I told him about the handprints and he said, well, do you think that they're still there? And I said, well, I doubt. It's been a few weeks. We've had a few rains. He said, well, let's just go look. And we went up to my truck and, you get down to where you're kind of looking down alongside the metal and alongside the top. And instead of looking from the side. We're looking straight down the side of it, and those handprints were still there. And he said, well, they're greasy enough, and I was just amazed that they were still there. And this guy carries fingerprint kits, but it was foot stock and there was so much going on. We never actually got around to trying to get the prints, but it was truly amazing. They were still there after all that time.
I'll tell you what, Mark, Lori's story, that situation, the whole thing, is something that creeps me out. I don't want to be in my vehicle, like if I'm sleeping in my vehicle while we're camping or something, and wake up and see something outside the window or whatever, and knowing those things are all around the vehicle, hitting it, shaking it, whatever they were doing. I don't know if I could have stayed there like she did. I'd have thrown on them lights and took out some trees, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, but I don't know why I think a tent's better, but I don't want one staring me right in the face through the window.
You have said that since I've known you. That just, I guess we all have these little things that just give us the creeps. And because I guarantee you'd become claustrophobic really quick inside of a vehicle, knowing that you can't get out. Yeah. And if they wanted to, they could just rip that door off and yank you out if they wanted to.
Yeah. I don't know why in my mind I'd rather be standing face to face with them than in the car with them looking through the window. I don't know why. I guess it's a phobia. I don't know. But she withstood it a whole lot better than I would have.
Yeah. She's brave. And that's, that's what we have found out over the years is these ladies are brave that go out there. And especially the ones that go, she goes out by herself.
Right.
And then you take other groups like Sisters of the Moon where they go out and it's just the ladies out there. And I think that's a key component to why they have had so much success.
I agree.
And speaking of success, what about that old Bama Murdock?
That Bama, he's come a long way in a short time, hasn't
he? Yeah. He has become one of my favorite people. And to be able to go out and hang out with, and I remember when he first come on the Sawdust Beast page, and he started posting some things and reaching out, and he started talking about LBL and things that have happened to him there. And so we kind of reached out to him and asked him to come on the show and talk about it. Now, this is somebody that grew up in rural Alabama and where there are boogers, but he never experienced really anything like that down there. And it was at LBL where he had his really first experience with a possible Bigfoot. And it's just, here we go again. We didn't really want to hear his story before the air. And as he's telling the story, I know what Larry was thinking because I was thinking the same thing. We need to find out where that spot is.
Well, he was gracious enough to take us that spot.
He did.
LBL closed it off where we can't get in there no more.
If I remember right, that he said they used to camp on the other side of that bay and said that they closed that spot down. Yeah. So they found the place where Bama took us.
Yep.
And, it's really suspicious how they closed that down. because when you went there and you came back and you told me, you said, Mark, they've closed that place down. I said, well, he said, what was it they dumped? A bunch of gravel or something on the road?
They dumped a big pile of dirt and, just asphalt and all kinds of stuff in the roadway to block it. And then they cut down 2 or 3 trees behind the dirt pile so people wouldn't run over the dirt pile. But it was probably 3-4 foot tall dirt pile.
Yeah. That's crazy. It makes you wonder, I would love to be a fly on the wall, when whoever made that decision and why.
Yeah, there was no rhyme or reason for it. I don't know.
And, we have had activity there.
Yeah.
And I remember one night I got walked off into the woods by myself, probably, I don't know, 100, 150 yards from camp. And here come a tree just out of nowhere, just come crashing down, big tree. Yeah. And I remember Debbie hollering at me, asking if I was all right. And
we just thought it was a bad bean. We thought you done knocked down a tree running back there or something.
Well, let's go ahead and play this clip. And I'm really looking forward to hearing Bama tell this story because, Bama, he is one of my favorite storytellers. Yep. And to imagine what was going on through his mind when he was hearing these screams, it's fantastic. It's good stuff. We're fortunate enough that we're friends with Bama now and able to go out to LBL at different spots and camping out.
Yep.
So let's listen to what happened to Bama Murdock.
And we usually have that little John boat with us, but since he brought that pontoon down from Kentucky, he had a kayak with him. So he said, well, man, while you're setting all that up, I'm going to, kayak around and fish around there as it gets dark. And I said, all right. So I got all my stuff set up and I came back and we were like a couple of kids with this beat up old pontoon boat. Came back and I thought I'm going to get up on that thing because if you see the picture that comes up, and I think Mark's showing it, there's one where I took a picture of a double rainbow, and that was taken from our campsite. Well, if you look at that picture that shows those 2 rainbows, the pontoon boat was about under the right rainbow that's on there. Well, he was gone a while, and I climbed up on top and carried me one of those little stumpy boat chairs with the little short legs on it. And you climb up on top of this pontoon, and there's a little rail around it, and there's a little air conditioning unit. So I just set it up there, and then I lugged Moose's butt up there too. And we just got comfortable because we're facing west, Larry. I'm going to look at the sunset. And I mean, the water was like glass. It was smooth. It was just really beautiful, but hot, still kind of warm. But I'm sitting up there, and I guess I'd been up there maybe 30 minutes or so, and it had just gotten to where if you looked up into the woods, it's dark enough to where you couldn't see into the woods. If you're looking across the bay or at the sky, you've got plenty of light. So it just gotten that dark. Moose is up there laying down on a life jacket I laid up there, so it'd be padded because he's spoiled rotten. And I'm sitting, something screamed at me directly behind me up on the hill. Now I'm sitting in that. It wasn't funny at the time. I'm laughing now, but I'm sitting in that little stumpy chair, and the first time it screamed at me, it felt like it just literally washed over the back of my head, and I grabbed the arms of that little stumpy chair. It was almost like if I'd had long hair, it was like standing in front of a speaker with your. Well, that's how hard I get chill bumps thinking about it. It for a second, and I was kind of like, holy mackerel! I didn't really say that, but I thought, what in the world was that? And maybe, oh goodness, 2 minutes later, it's almost like when you kind of stop thinking about it, or maybe you decide you're going to get up and move. Maybe you're going to go get your phone where you can record something, or, which was downstairs or down the ladder in the boat, by the way. Well, I thought, I'm going to ease up and get my phone, so at least maybe I can record this. Well, that's when the second scream came. Now, this sound, I tell anybody that I've told, it was so loud that it echoed off up into a hollow. There's like a little finger hollow that runs up in there that we've hunted before. And that's that road, the old road that they've made where you can't travel it anymore. And it's an old cemetery road. And it echoed up in there that second time. I didn't hear it do that the first time because I think it just, I don't know. I think it startled me so bad that it gave me tunnel hearing, is what I call it, where everything else was closed out. The second time that happened, then I got to really, hear it from the start to the finish. And I've been around some pretty good vocalists over the years and stuff. And this was loud. And the duration of it, most people will say, well, I heard this and it was so loud, no human could have done it. Well, I've heard human. Well, the dog had got up by this time. He's always kind of like my barometer sometimes. He had got up and he's turned around, he's looking up there, not making a noise. Try to ease out of this chair. But I can't go down and get something to record because, I guess I can leave him up there. These are the things that I'm thinking about. And I came out of that chair onto the deck kind of like a slinky, like I melted out of that thing slowly down into, and I kind of belly crawled around, and there's one of those really small air conditioning units, like on campers and stuff. And I kind of eased around that thing, and I thought, man, I'm going to go over that ladder and go down, get my phone, come back up and see if I can at least record something. Well, about the time I got to the ladder, that's when there was another scream. I think there was a total of 5 screams, and each one of them sounded exactly the same. They started high pitched and stayed high pitched all the way to the end. Well, I thought, I guess I'm stuck up here. And I sat there until maybe it had started getting pretty dark about that time. And when this last scream came, the second that it came off to my, I know how people talk about, I heard this, and then there was a wood knock, and there was this, and this. This is exactly what I heard, and this is the way I describe it. When I heard the last scream off to my left, I heard a rotten tree knock, is the way I describe it. I heard it hit the tree and break, and then I heard the thud when it hit the ground. It was that close to me across straight, flat water, and if it had been more light, it would have been obvious that you could have seen it. So if that was something, now I'm thinking, if that is something, I guess it has a direct view of me here. Literally, when that happened, my buddy came around in his kayak around the side, and we have this thing to where we go hooty hoo when we come walking into camp. So he goes hooty hoo like that, and he paddled up, and I said, "Hey man, hand me my phone out of there." And he said, "All right." So he goes in, hands me the phone, goes back in, starts up the generator on this rattle trap. So there's no more hearing anything. I'm not going to be able to hear anything else. I will say this. After it got dark, we had something to eat, man. I made that wade back across there, that campsite. And he said, man, I'm going to fire up this generator and get this air conditioner going, get it cold in here. He goes, man, why don't you come in here and just throw something in the floor and sleep in here? And man, across there I went. I was back into that pontoon. I did. I slept in that thing on the floor. And I'm not ashamed to say it either.
That Bama, one thing I admire about him is how he is even keel and meticulous with his stories. He's not one of them emotional people. He just keeps an even keel about him. He considers all the different things that could be, might be, I don't know. But we've been in those situations where we've been out and had something yell at us, and sometimes we get excited about it. We think it's a booger, and sometimes we're unsure and just blow it off and go on. And Bama, unsure at the time, he was confused about it for sure and wondering, and then his buddy telling him stuff that's happened to him, and he put the whole picture together later about what it was and thought, man, that could have been a booger. But I mean, all the little details, so many people will have one little nuance here or there and not put it together, but he just had so many things happen at this spot that it just clicked what it was. So, and he's such a good storyteller that, I mean, he could tell you Mary had a little lamb and you'd want to listen to every bit of it. But Bama's a good dude, and I enjoy going out with him, sharing a campfire with him and Moose, and he's just a good person.
Yeah, just don't try to walk up on Moose in the middle of the night.
No. Moose won't snap at you, will he?
Yeah, he will. And all I was doing was trying to cover him up.
Oh, me.
But our last encounter story tonight is from Brenda Harris from the New Mexico Seekers. And she can tell a good encounter story and has had so many things happen to her from even as a small child, and her parents trying to hide it from her, what was really going on. And whenever, I guess, this pandemic and stuff is over with and these conferences start popping back up, I'm going to tell you, it is worth however you got to get there to go to her conference. And that's where, when I went, that's where I first met Scott Espinosa, Con Squatch. Yep. And so it was, it was just a great time being there. And, it's something that'll always be etched in my memory of the things when she took us up on the mountain and the different things that happened to us up there. And it's just, she's just such a nice person. And to hear these stories, it's pretty amazing. I remember when we went up on the mountain, we were going to go in 2 vehicles. And the first thing out of my mouth was, I got dibs with Brenda. And because it was about an hour away from her house. And yeah. I just wanted to ask her questions and hear the different encounters. And we would be like driving down the road and she'll say, well, look over at that house over there. And she says, let me tell you what happened there. And she'd go telling what happened. And by the time she'd finish the story, she'd say, over here, now this is where so and so happened. And she would go and tell that story. And what it is whenever Bigfoot activity happens around somebody's house on the res, then that's who they call. That's the go-to person, is Brenda Harris. And so we're going to listen to Brenda tell. Go ahead.
Now, wasn't it the day after that you rode with her that she had that restraining order took out on you? Or was that later?
I guess that was later, Larry.
All right, let's play the video then.
My very, very first, literally almost face-to-face encounter was in the early 90s. It was in the summertime. My husband was working the graveyard shift, and he left the house about 10:30, and I had our bedroom window open. Then, of course, we had our living room windows open. At the time, we lived in a double wide, so we had a porch, and as you're walking up to the porch, we had laid out some gravel, so I could hear footsteps. If anybody's walking on the gravel, I could hear it. Well, after my husband left for work that night, probably about maybe 30, I'm going to say about 30 minutes to almost 45 minutes goes by. Kids are all laughing, and we're all just kind of having a good time. Just, kids had their cousins over, and I had my youngest brother there with me at the time. And we were just sitting there, and all of a sudden, I could hear the dogs like all of a sudden start whimpering and crying, and pretty soon I start hearing heavy footsteps on the gravel walking up onto the porch. When you have a porch, even a screen door, as time goes by, they start squeaking, right?
Right.
So I could hear this thing literally walking up on the stairs, and what caught my attention the most was the dogs. We had a couple dogs, and they were really whimpering and crying underneath the porch. And I'm like, what? How come, they're crying? They were really scared. That's what caught my attention. And then pretty soon I could hear this, whatever it was on the porch, because I could hear steps on the porch, and it was squeaking. And then pretty soon I hear the like something opening up the screen door, and I was just watching. I told everybody, "Hey, be quiet! There's something out there." And it opened up the screen door. A few seconds later, I see the doorknobs turning.
Wow!
So I'm like, "What the heck?" And still the dogs are quiet underneath the porch, but they're whimpering. And my brother was kind of in front of the door, and then I had to catch him. Then I was behind, and had my two young ones behind me. And I told my brother, I said, "Open the door. Let's see who it is." And he froze. He couldn't move. He was so scared. He couldn't. He just couldn't move. And so the door, as the doorknob was still turning, I'm like, maybe someone's just trying to scare us next door. So I went around my brother, and of course I had the deadlock on. As soon as I turned that deadlock, I could let go of the doorknob, and I flung that door open, and all I saw in front of me was this tall hairy thing in front of me standing there. It wasn't very muscular, kind of scraggy looking.
Uh-huh.
I didn't get to see the face because the face was covered in hair. And it had long arms, and it's like we looked at each other for a couple of seconds, and it just darted off the porch, ran to the west and around our home. Now, behind our home, we have this irrigation ditch that runs back there, and it took off back that way. And my brother, of course, he did see it, and he was kind of, he was freaking out, like, what the heck? And I'm like, oh, that can't be what I'm seeing. You know what I just saw standing there? Was that really, And of course the kids are, what was it? Was it? I'm like, this is where I start turning like my mom and dad. Oh, it's nothing. Let's just go to bed. So I told all the kids, I said, hey, I just shut down everything. I said, let's go to bed. What was it? What was it? I just looked at my brother. My brother's like, he couldn't believe it. He was like, like, was that, I'm like, shh, don't say anything because I didn't want to scare my kids.
Right.
And then their cousins, so I shut down everything. We all went to sleep. Probably about 15, 20 minutes later, this thing comes back. So from the time that this thing took off the porch, my dogs still wouldn't come out from underneath the porch. They stayed underneath the porch, just whimpering. I could hear them whimpering. And this thing came back, was turning the doorknob again. I'm like, what the heck? So I flipped on the light and it darted off. Now, this went on throughout the night.
Wow.
And each time I would turn the light on, but there was probably around, 2 o'clock, I believe, is when I'm like, I want to try to, look and see. I thought maybe it's a skinwalker or something. I'm like, no, this is not a skinwalker. And so our bedroom window faces right where we could see people walking, up to the porch. So I opened the curtain and I looked out and I could just see this black tall thing just standing at the front door. And, it was turning the doorknob. I'm like, okay, what does this thing want? So I would drop something and hear it and it would take off. So and it took off again. It would come back. Like I said, throughout the night, it came back probably around 3:30 or 4. Around that time, I think is when I jumped. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go jump into the truck and I'm going to drive around and see where this thing went. So I locked everybody, told my brother, watch these guys. And I locked everybody in and I took off and I drove around and down to the north end of the field. And I drove around to the end of the main road and I turned west. And finally, one of the dogs came out of underneath the porch and followed me. And if I would have just watched her and just, if I just kept my eye on her at the same time as I was driving, I probably would have seen this thing. At about halfway heading west, the dog I noticed stopped, turned around, she was crying and she ran back home crying. So by the time I got to the end of the corner, at the northwest corner of the field, there's some big old like brushes there, big bushes. And had I stopped, I could have seen where this thing was at. It was bunkered down in that corner and I had just passed it. And so I went driving all the way down to the south, up around our home, and I didn't see anything. So I just pulled back in and went back into the house. About 20 minutes after I did that, shut everything down, this thing came back again.
Wow.
What it wanted, I don't know what it wanted, what it was trying to do. I remember just locking the screen door and I could hear it, pulling on that. And each time I would just drop something so it could hear it and it would take off. It would come back each time, and like I said, I don't know what it wanted, what it was trying to do. By 6 o'clock, when daylight started breaking, everything just stopped. About 5:30, almost 6, everything stopped. And then my husband pulls up about, I believe it was about 7 o'clock, and I told him what was going on, what had happened, and he was like, "Oh man," and of course he goes, "It's probably just a skinwalker." And I'm looking at him, "No, this is not a skinwalker." And so I described to him what I had seen. And he's just like, no way. And I said, okay, let's go look for footprints, around the house. So we walked behind the house and I did find a pretty big footprint. At the time, I didn't bother to take a picture of it or to measure it. And the closest thing that comes close is, the movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek, when the young boys find a footprint at that creek, right?
Right.
had only 3 toes. Exact same footprint I found right behind our home. And it was
Wow.
like in the soft dirt, kind of had a little bit of moisture to it. So it left a good impression there. Exact same footprint that I found in the back. And so I showed my husband, I said, look at this. And he's like, oh, that kind of shook him up a little bit,
Uh-huh.
kind of scared him, like, what the heck? So,
Now, wait a
um,
second, Brenda.
yes.
Your husband says, oh, it may just be a skinwalker. Like, that's no big deal, but a
Yeah.
Bigfoot is.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's up
It's
with
funny.
that? Mark, the number one thing that stands out to me on this video still is that her husband tried to make it sound like it was a relief that it might have been a skinwalker instead of a Bigfoot. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather a Bigfoot show up at my door than a skinwalker.
Yeah, he was playing it down, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, like that's an everyday occurrence. Yeah, it's old skinwalker from up the road come down there. Oh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. I remember that story Dan Ricky told us about that skinwalker.
Yeah.
And well, it was a secondhand story of what one of the American natives had told him about the old man walking down the road, and he just looked strange. And then they drove down to a town 30 miles away, and about the time they drove straight down there, and they pulled in, and then here comes this guy walking.
Yep. Crazy.
It's kind of like what Cheryl told us about that woman in them pajamas out in the middle of nowhere with them dead eyes.
Yeah, that would have done it for me.
Yeah.
I'll take a Bigfoot any day of the week over that.
But it's been great watching these clips, and I'm looking forward to jumping in chat with everyone, and hopefully Larry and I will both have reception where we're at.
And hopefully William Lunsford and I will be off the lake from bass fishing by the time it comes on. I hope.
I tell you, we need to go down there and throw up some hammocks in one of them active spots, because I don't think there's really a lot of people that are camping off in the swamps down there.
There's a reason.
Yeah. They made a movie about it.
That's right. But we do need to get down there and get out with him and Steven for sure.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and we just appreciate all of our subscribers, everybody that comments in the chat. It's just, it brings a lot of joy to our lives. We like keeping things upbeat. There's so much negativity in this community, and that's one of Larry and I's goals, is to keep things positive and to treat people how you want to be treated. And we have really found that with the people that come into the chat, and you can just tell, Larry, they look forward to it. Every Thursday night, and now every Monday night with Beast of the Woods. And that's been a lot of fun to be able to it's kind of a late night where we can just sit back and relax and talk about what we want, to talk about that pops up during the week. And so I really like the two formats, where it's more of a looser show with Beast of the Woods, and Beast TV is more featuring a researcher that has knowledge and skills and experiences that they can share to hopefully to help other people out there, that they may be able to take their, maybe a little tactic, or as Rodney says, a little nugget.
Yeah.
And
You
so,
know, our two shows are kind of like us packing for an outing. You pack for a week or two and make sure everything's right. And you get there and you got everything. Old Larry shows up, packs the day before, and throws everything in the Jeep and says, "Here I am, let's go." That's
a
kind of how our shows are.
yeah, $1 waiting on a dime.
That's right. But it's fun both ways.
Yeah. You know, and that's what this should be, because this is a hobby.
Yeah.
And the moment that you don't enjoy doing a hobby, then it's time to find another hobby.
Yep.
And so we enjoy the people that we go out with, the people that we meet, the people that we talk to online. And if we have some type of Bigfoot activity go on while we're in the woods, that's just the icing on the cake.
That's right. And a couple of people that we don't like, if it sends their day to the crapper because we're still smiling, that's even better too.
I love being a burr under their saddles.
It's great.
Yeah. And now we got a lawyer that backs us up.
Yeah. Oh, but what can you do?
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Just enjoy it. Enjoy it. And we enjoyed having everybody in the chat tonight. And we want to thank you again for coming on. And we will see you again live next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night, night, footers. Beast TV would like to welcome all of our new Facebook members. Be sure to check out our pictures and videos of possible evidence. And if you haven't checked out the Files tab, there is a wealth of information that you may find beneficial. If you would like to support Beast TV, check out our gear. We have coffee mugs, face masks, gaiters, shirts, and tank tops. The link is pinned at the top of the comment section. Everything is always marked down 20%, so come check out our junk. We want to thank all of our new subscribers and our faithful followers. Also, be sure to check out our field evidence videos and our sister channel, Beast of the Woods. That's Larry's channel. If you want to help us out, make sure that you are subscribed. Click the thumbs up button, ring the bell, and leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. Thanks again to each of you for watching, and we will see you again. Same bat time, same bat channel. Night, night, footers.
This has been a Sawdust production.